Hello everyone, welcome to SF Garnish Music Production's Bay Area. My name is Justin Anchetta and I'm here to talk about how to nominalize and make your live recordings, your multi-track live recordings, the best they can be. What I did recently was created a live show in Auburn, California, tracking multiple tracks of instruments. And then from there, I was able to start doing the mixing process. And what I'm going to do is walk you through setting up the tracks in arrangement view, naming them, and the entire recording process, making sure your preferences are set correctly. And then some post-production as well, and the rendering, mastering settings. So to start off, what I did was I opened up a new scene, right? A new live set. And I created a bunch of tracks by going Command T, right? So I'm doing Command T here. And then what I did is on the track, I selected right on the track and said Command R, or you can also right click and say rename. And I started naming the tracks, right? And I called it Gary above because he was on many instruments, saxophone, bass sounds, etc. And he did all of those sounds on this Gary 01 track right here. And then later on, I created some more tracks and split up the tracks based on it being bass versus saxophone, because there's a separate EQ that I'm going to want for each one. So the next thing is to make sure that in your preferences, which is Command comma, or just go to File Preferences, make sure that your input and output is set to the device that you're wanting to record with. I had the XR 18 at the show, so that's what it was set to at the show. For the time being, I'm not doing any recording here because it's already pre-recorded from the show, and I'm just going to use the built-in output headphone out so that you guys can listen to the track that I'm manipulating here. So once I named all the files in arrangement view, I went to the very beginning and pressed record, which is in the upper circle button right here. And this record button starts recording from wherever your cursor is. At the moment, mine was at the very beginning. And I let it run for the entire first set, straight through. On our break, which happened right in the middle here, we took about a 30-minute break, and then I started the next scene again and calling it set 2. Each time that I did a new scene, I really was trying to just get the basic tracks in a good level. They were a little bit soft in volume, but what I was able to then do is normalize them in post-production. So that's what I'm going to show you here. You can see now that all of these tracks are already normalized, but how they first came in was very soft. They were about like this. And what I did is I selected all the tracks and I brought the track volume up to a good level and making sure that none of them are peaking, such as this right here, right? Bringing it just to a good level there. If you're not seeing this bottom area, it might be because you are in the effects area versus showing the clip view on the bottom of the screen. So once I had that, I was able to go in and even bring up other areas. This is a little bit smaller. I would go Command E and just bring up that even more, for example. I was doing that by listening to the track and knowing which areas I wanted to do that to. So I've already done that ahead of time, just so we can be more efficient with our time here. Next, I went through each track listening and soloing out each track. Here's the vocal. In God to find your good intention. And while I was listening to it, I then put on an EQ and a compression. And what that was able to do is just I brought up the area right here, which is just above 1000 hertz, just by about 3 dB to really pop the vocals out in the mix a little bit. I brought some of the lows down to be a little bit less muddy, and also the highs just so they wouldn't be too crisp. I also, on my returns, I'm going into session view here because I like how the returns look here. But you can see that the reverb is on return A, and I was able to bring the reverb up on the vocals by bringing it up right here to the middle left of the screen. I brought that up pretty high. I put it on the saxophone, mic 2, and then also Marin's voice that I also added later. So I just went through each track, soloing each track, making sure that the EQs were set specifically for those tracks. So I'm noticing that when you generically bring up the volumes of all these tracks, some might need to be brought down to make sure that they're not peaking, such as the mic 2 and also Marin's voice right here. All right. Actually, some of these other ones as well. So this is an easy way to just adjust the volumes to make sure that you're hearing them nice and clear in playback. Let's try this out. This one's obviously a little bit too loud. We can bring that back. So there's really two things that you're listening for, is just nominal levels and then also what sounds good. This mic 2 was on the cajon drum, and it was supposed to just pad out the electronic drums, so it should be in the background. I can either do that manually here by bringing these down, or I can go to the volume right here, show the automation of it, and bring it up or down here. What's great about using the automation is that you can automate areas to do volume sweeps, right? So just bring it up and down like that. And you can do that with any effect as well. For now, we'll just keep that regular. In Ableton 10 Suite, there's a very cool function A. Make sure that your keyboard right here is not enabled because it won't work otherwise. But when you press A, it clears out all of the extra automation, and you can then put it back in as well. And whatever's highlighted underneath your track that's showing that automation. All the straight lines means it's just pretty basic, but it does show the general level of each thing, such as on Marin's voice, it's showing the reverb is about just above 50%. And what's nice is just pressing A again, it clears it up, and then you can kind of splice and cut up your track accordingly. So on this cajon drum, I wanted it on a separate track because I wanted to bring up the low end here, just around 100 to 300 hertz specifically. Bring it up, and then just below, 20 hertz, I just let that drop out. Just take out the mud. The saxophone and drum track, I also took out a little bit of the low here. And let's see, the vocal track, yeah, I went through that already. I did add compression to kind of beef up the sound and make the softer points in the track more audible, and the louder points to kind of bring them back. So it just allows the peaks and valleys to be a little bit easier on the ears. If you can overdo compression, a lot of things on the radio have been double compressed, a little over compressed, something to watch out for in your mix. So we have our multi-track recording, and as you can see in each set 1 and set 2 that was recorded, I put these scene markers in post-production and added them in, and then clicked on them and said Command R and named them, right? Or you can right click and say rename. But I just said Gary's Good Song here because it was something that I wanted to remember to mix better. And then also the names of the songs, Boom Cartier, Sandy Beaches, Make My Day, so that I can easily get back to the song that I want to work on if I save and come back again. So once you have this down, you want to then have an out point. So I'm going to say end the song here. Rename end. And this says Gary Good number 3. It's our last song. And in the beginning, it looks like there's just a couple noises. We're going to really want to find out where the entry point is for the song. So let's move that. That feels like a good spot. How about a little earlier? Okay, I like the idea of having it come in right away. All right. So right here, we're seeing the spectrum analyzer on the EQ, seeing where the frequencies are on the beat. Everything seems good there. Let's go ahead. So I just brought the volume of the voice track down a little bit. And I don't have too much control of the backing track because the drums, the saxophone, and the bass are all in this one track. So if you're wanting to have more control in post-production, you're going to want to set up separate channels for each one. And that's in the configuration right now. It's not letting me do that because I don't have any outboard gear like the XR18 connected. But when you have your USB connected to your interface, XR18 or whatever else you have, it should pop up here with your multi-channels to record and enable. So we're back in here. We've done a couple mixing points. We have our starting point. And let's see where we want to end. See there's a fade out here, pretty easy to see where that fade is. So I'm going to have that ending point there, and then I'm going to press A again and bring back our track volume. And what I like to do is just really automate this to drop, and then you can go right here and even zoom in. I use just the plus button on your keyboard. And you can press the Alt Option button, and that little curve comes in, and you can actually move this in any direction you want, right? So what I like to do is maybe put 2 points and actually curve it 2 ways, you know? There's a couple different ways you can do this. So that's kind of a nice way to easily make your out point and the fade to be nice. All right, so going back to pressing A and getting out of that, I'm going to render this track now and show you just the basics of rendering this. Oh, one last thing. On the mastering channel, I put a mastering effect, wide and warm master, and you can find this right here in audio effects and drop down audio effects rack, mixing and mastering, and it's toward the bottom, wide and warm. You're going to want to mess around with the settings yourself a little bit. The mid gain was brought up a lot, and a little bit of the bass and highs, and then it compressed the track to really make things pop out a little bit. So that's just something that I put on quickly. If I'm just trying to do a quick mix master and not spend too much time on it, the wide and warm master is a great one to use for your live show. Then once you have selected from your starting point, right, and your end point, the entire track, Command Shift R brings you to the export audio, and you can export as WAV for the best quality. 24-bit depth is pretty regular. I don't put a dither on until I really am finalized with the master, and sometimes I don't even do that. MP3. So I think for now, I'm just going to do the MP3 because this is just a kind of a test out. I'm going to send this off to Gary just to kind of show him what our live sound was. I don't think we're going to really do anything with these tracks other than hopefully progress collaborating together. So MP3 is fine. It's a file size that's way smaller. You're going to save a lot of space and easier to send through email to people. If you do a WAV file through email, it's going to have to Dropbox and larger file, etc. Waves are what albums and CDs are made with, and it is the higher quality. So when you're really finally done with the master, that's what you're going to want to export as. So now that that is set to MP3, your rendering track is also set to master track, not individuals or anything else. And then just press export and then name this. And it has already the name of the show because my full file was saved as this initially. I'm going to say last track because it was the last track of the evening. And I'm now rendering that. This shouldn't take very long, especially if you're just doing MP3 format. And if you like what you saw here, please go ahead, like and subscribe to our page, and let us know what other videos you might want to see. My name is Justin Anchetta from SF Garnish Music Production, Bay Area, and I really appreciate doing this tutorial for you. And you can go to sf.garnishmusicproduction.com for more information on the year-round classes that we are doing in the Bay Area. Have a great day.